All right, we're live here at the Station of Decapitation Without Your Head. I'm Nasty Neil, and I'm joined by writer-director Rory Karpf and Jim
Hello.
Parrack. Hello.
What's up?
Yeah, not much of Grace Point, which is out today.
Yes, it is. Thank you for having us on. It's available right now.
Yes. Yeah, go and get it right now after the interview.
After the
or go watch it and then come back for the interview. Either way will work.
Yeah,
so for people not aware, can you give them an idea of what Grace Point is about?
Grace Point is about a kid on his way to a drug rehab, played by John Owen Lowe, who is the son of Rob Lowe, being brought to this drug rehab by his dad, played by Andrew McCarthy. And along the way, they stop in a town called Grace Point to get some gas. Some bad things happen. Dad gets hurt, and it's up to John Owen's character to save his dad, become the hero, all while he's detoxing from drugs and battling his interpersonal demons. So it's a thrill ride, but it's also a coming-of-age story. There's a lot of emotion in it. So hopefully there's something for everyone. And Jim plays the character of Cutter, who is a mysterious stranger who is there to help Brandon, that's John Owen's character's name, kind of along on this journey.
So, Jim, what interested you in the role?
Johnny was a friend of mine, and we had gotten to know each other. I was working with his dad and met him, and we just clicked and got along. And I think about 4 years ago this month, he asked if I'd ever seen some of Rory's documentaries that he made for ESPN. And I said, yeah, those are great. He said, well, me and that guy are making a movie, and I'm going to be the lead. And they were working on the script together and everything. And they invited me to come in and play the part and to help produce it. And I said, yeah, let's do it. Sounds great.
That's how this whole thing kind of went. It was like 6 degrees almost, like somebody knew somebody. And then Jim said, hey, have you casted the role of Luther yet? Which is kind of our heavy. And I said, not yet. And he's like, well, I did a play once with this guy who was ready to have a full-on fist fight with one of the crowd members. He's very intense. I was like, I think he would be really good. And that was Sean Carrigan, who has since become one of my close friends. And and people just kept doing that.
And Jim is right. He is very intense in the movie.
He is, yeah. Yeah, Sean and I were in acting class together, like back in 2004. And I'd always thought, I hope I get to do something on camera. We did a bunch of plays and stuff together, but I always wanted to do something like a movie with them, and hadn't seen him in years. And when I read it, I was just like, oh, dude, if they haven't found the guy yet, I got the guy for you. And I think Sean did a great job.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I really love the movie, not just because you're both here. Like, no, I was really into it. I know this is a horror movie show, but I love just movies in general, if it's good or not. And I thought it was great.
Thank you. What did you like being a horror movie guy?
Well, honestly, the acting is great. I really like a lot of the scenes actually between Jim and John, like a lot of the dialogue scenes, like the quiet scenes. I think you guys are really do well together. In March 28th is 5 years that I quit drinking. I've been sober. So, I like that whole theme of the movie.
Dude, that's awesome.
Congrats.
Thanks. Yeah. So, big difference. Is there a personal connection for you, Rory, in that part of the story?
I mean, in all sincerity, no. I did stop drinking like 2 years ago. It wasn't necessarily like interpersonal demons. I didn't go to AA. It was more just for health reasons, and just didn't want to have headaches or say stupid stuff anymore. I'd rather say stupid things sober. But
I found you can still do it.
Well,
I can anyway. Yeah.
I think more what it is dealing with trauma that I could relate to, especially from childhood trauma, and the character I could relate to with having an incident that is theoretically a life-defining incident. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think maybe people that struggle with drugs and alcohol are maybe using that to medicate other problems sometimes.
Sure,
yeah. So I think that's what the character's doing. Instead of facing what happened, he's self-medicating, and that's why his father, played by Andrew McCarthy, is kind of at his wit's end. So I could relate to that, because I had a kind of a little tumultuous upbringing, but I don't know, I would get into fights or just act stupid, and eventually I just had to face what happened. And then once you do that, once you deal with your trauma, I think you can move past it. It doesn't become a centerpiece in your life anymore. It just becomes something that happened to you, and you can but you have to move through it, I think, is the key. You have a line that someone, I think a reviewer mentioned, that was one of their favorites, that, that you have to face pain head on. You can't run from it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's true in life.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a quote in the movie that the dad says, and then Jim's character then says.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and it's funny. Maybe it's not funny, but we've had screenings of the film. It played in North Carolina in theaters, and I went to some of those and sat with the crowd. And I've seen this movie like ad nauseum, like too many times, and I freaking choked up in that scene with you and Johnny by the fire.
Yeah, that's the scene I was mentioning.
I don't know why that gets to me every time, but every time, I think that's one of his strongest scenes. When he thanks you, it just seems like it comes from such a genuine place, and I just really felt the connection between your two characters. And I remembered how much fun we had filming that scene. It
was great.
Yeah, so it kind of all came together, but it still gets me watching these great actors.
Yeah. And I don't know if it's something you want to talk about, Jim, but did you have a personal connection to that aspect of the movie?
Yeah. I mean, I did. I got sober when I was 22 years old from alcohol and drugs, and I'm 43 now. So if I make it to February 10th, it'll be 22 years. And, you heard Rory's kind of long-winded breakdown of the movie. Mine was sort of like, I can't think of that movie without thinking in terms of like all these old guys that helped me get sober in the rooms and stuff early on. And their version of it would be like a weak, selfish fuck finds himself in the woods with his life on the line, and either he becomes honest, courageous, giving man, or he dies.
That was the original log line.
That's the original log line. Yeah.
That was the original one we went for.
It didn't quite fit on the poster.
Honestly, and like I could anticipate you not liking this comparison, but the comparison couldn't be greater. It's Pinocchio, right? It's like Johnny's Pinocchio, and Andrew McCarthy is Geppetto, and Harlan is the Blue Fairy, and Sean is the Whale, and Honest John, and I'm Jiminy Cricket, right? And that's such a deep, deep story. It's an incredibly deep story. It's endlessly deep. It's how do you become a real man? You know what I mean? And well, you set out and call upon something higher than yourself, and there's guides that come your way, and there's things to traverse, and there's enemies standing in the way, and your guides help you overcome the enemies and shape up little by little, and this power that you call upon hopefully descends, comes to your aid, reshapes you, and then you can handle it. And so I don't mean that in a pejorative way. Like Pinocchio's, God bless any of us that can make something as good as Pinocchio.
I could use a little of that Disney money.
Yeah.
So you can compare it.
Yeah.
We could have used that when we were making it.
No, I think that's an interesting comparison.
Cricket.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I don't want to give away much of the movie, but there is a point in the movie when I started to think, I wonder if this character is really there. And so it was because the movie, shifts at different points.
Do you ever see this movie, Cloak and Dagger?
No.
Dabney Coleman?
Yeah.
I saw that movie in theaters.
Yeah, I used to have we taped it off of television, but it's a kid. And is it Thomas Henry?
I don't know.
Or Henry Thomas?
The
main
kid from E.T.?
Yeah. I can't remember who, but it's a kid, and it's set in San Antonio, and his best friend is like this special ops guy in his 50s, and it's totally an imaginary friend, but it helps the kid through this dangerous situation with like real cartel guys and stuff coming after him.
I think
it's a cool movie,
and the character's almost supposed to be like his father in a way. But besides comparing it to Pinocchio or a little scene 80s movie, another film I would compare it to, I was thinking of, is kind of The Sixth Sense, and just that was a quote unquote genre horror movie, but it was also coming of age for the characters in it. Like the kid went on a journey, and so did Bruce Willis's character. And then also there's some themes, like Bruce Willis had to kind of forgive himself and resign things with his wife, and the kid has to learn that, you know, things can seem scary, but if you talk to these people, you know, they're just themes of coming, all different kinds of things. And I think in Grace Point there's some themes too. Hopefully people get out of it. And I think you can make a genre film, this one being a thriller, but also it dips into other genres like coming of age, and you can pack something with some heart and emotion into it. And I think that's what I wanted to do, especially lower budget indie thrillers. A lot of times it's just, you get just the straight action. And we have some action, but also I didn't want to forget the heart as well.
No, I think that's the strength of the movie. And then also you're invested in the characters, and you want to see them do well, or see what happens to them. You know, it's not just about people punching each other or something. But it seemed like a really physical movie for you and for John. You know, there's a lot of running in the movie, even on the poster, and there's you know, just it seems like a physical movie. How physically demanding was it, Jim?
Well, he had to do a lot more running than I did, for sure. But yeah, it was. We were in this beautiful part of North Carolina, and it was summer, so it was a little warm. And
Jim never complained about anything. He was game. Johnny, on the other hand, you know, he's like, again? I'm like, dude, you're running a block, you know? He's like, I don't know if I'm wearing proper orthotics. I'm like, dude, you know, so he does run. And there's a lot of, you know, to his credit, he's game. And one of the questions we got after one of the screenings was it really you and Johnny in that water, in that lake? And it was. And nobody like cleaned it out. Nobody checked for things. That was a real line about that. Are there snakes in here? And you're like, yeah. So
that wasn't even in the script, was it?
I don't know. I think you might have improv that. That's one of the good laughs in the film. You know, if I could do things over, I would put a little bit more humor in it at times. But because you don't realize until you're watching with people, like they're just begging to laugh. Sometimes so they'll laugh at the smallest little thing. But yeah, you guys really went in there and got in the water and the grime, and Johnny, yes, he does do a lot of running, and he was doing push-ups on set in between takes to, you know, of course it didn't help, but he tried, and there is some physicality for sure.
Our life of horror. Congrats on 6 months sober Friday. Well, congratulations to you.
Go for it.
Yeah,
good stuff.
So Jim, were you an actor at that time when you quit drinking?
I was in pursuit, not even of a career, but I just wanted to learn how to do it. I had a kind of harebrained alcoholic scheme of what my life as an actor would be, which was I wasn't interested in promoting myself or breaking in or anything. I just wanted to spend time acting and learning about acting. And another actor saw me do a play and said, "Man, you're really good, but I hear from people you've got some pretty serious alcohol problems. If you ever want any help." And I was, you know, I wasn't having it yet. And then about 6 months later, things got bad enough that I put my hand up and called the guy, and he said, "Meet me in the morning at this place with these guys." And you know, my story, thank God, it hasn't been one of relapse or anything. So once I got a hold of it, I ran with it. And I remember early, like that day, actually, there was this old man, and he had been an actor, and he had been on like Beverly Hillbillies and stuff back in the 60s. And he said, "You know, an actor has to know themselves." And I didn't know what he was talking about at the time. I was like, "No, an actor's being someone else," which it certainly isn't. He said, "And this is the place you're going to get to know yourself." And I thought, well, we'll see. And then maybe about 10 years later, I went, right, yeah. Like if you want to do things that are personal, you have to know what life means to you, and recovery is a good place to dig around and figure out what's really going on.
And Jim brought an authenticity to the film, and so did Johnny. And also, by the way, Andrew McCarthy's sober too. I think he's been sober 30 years. So
wow,
I think it's important. It's very. I didn't want to do a film. You did the film Fury, and
yeah.
didn't you do like some serious like training to understand war? And because I hadn't been in recovery, or I didn't want it to just feel like faux fake things. So even with Johnny's withdrawals or some different things, you would say when we're working on the script, well, you really wouldn't say this, you would say that. So
yeah.
I think while it's certainly a movie and it's a story, there is an authenticity that Jim helped ensure in the film, which was really important to him.
Yeah, it's nice. It was nice to collaborate and to have the three of us, early on, just saying, what's the story we're trying to tell, and what's the best and kind of leanest, clearest way to tell that. And it's one of the great things about making a smaller movie is there's no one to answer to except your own values. And we got to kind of set the values ahead of time. Rory set them for the whole movie. Johnny and I tried to really kind of focus on the parts of the story we were acting, and it was cool. The other people who came in stepped into an environment where there was some real direction, where really, you could feel the kind of movie it was, you could feel the kind of movie it wasn't. And it was like on Fury or anything else. Usually the value I try to answer to most is, how authentic or how real can it be? The audience gets the part where it's a movie, they understand that part. So why not put your effort into making it as honest as possible? And
we really bonded during the filming. Like Jim and I are friends. We still talk. I mean, I certainly call you a lot more than you call me, but
I'm not a phone guy.
But I mean, we even during the filming, we went on an outing with Jim and his wife and me and my wife. We went to go see Fast and the Furious. Was it 10?
9.
9. So yeah. Jim's in the movie. He kills Vin Diesel's father.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and you're not very empathetic about it at all. You're kind of a jerk in the film. Yeah. And first, we missed the opening scene. You're in the opening scene. We're late to his own movie. This is the one movie, for some reason, they don't show trailers in. Yeah. So we were late. And then there's another scene that we watch, and it was really good. And I really liked it. And we're just sitting there. I just remember kind of awkwardly. And then Jim leans in, and you're like, this isn't a very good movie, is it?
Well, he's a very honest man here. So.
Yeah, but made a lot of money. And people...
yes.
I think they made the movie they were trying to make for sure. Those guys know how to make what they set out to make. I don't know. I get moved by different things, but at some point, if we have time, I'll have horror questions for Nasty Neil.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, definitely. Oh, well, you can ask him here if you want. We'll go back and forth between the movie. Do you have a horror question?
Yeah. So there was a movie I saw on PBS as a elementary school kid. It was playing in the middle of the day, and it was either in Wales or Great Britain. And the setup was, and it haunted me. And like actual nightmares for a long time. I love horror movies. The first movie I ever saw was The Howling when I was 2.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
My mom and dad went on date night, and usually I would sleep through the movie because it would go so late. And they'd look down 40 minutes in, and I was wide awake and just absorbing The Howling, which makes a lot of sense. But in this movie, there's like this young British woman, and she's protecting these British kids from these axe-wielding, mask-wearing killers. One of them has a duck mask. One of them has this other kind of mask, and there's a character named Father Christmas. That's
I actually know the movie you're talking about, but I'm not going to know the name of it.
Dude, I've asked some, like I've done a lot of the conventions and stuff.
Yeah.
I was on Blood, and I would always go to people that had 30,000 horror movies for sale or something like that and ask, and they all know the movie and none of them can name it.
Damn, I will that sounds very familiar, and I can kind of envision it in my mind. I'm gonna I'll cheat later and look at and try to Google and see if I can.
I've tried. If you find it, let me know.
Similar to me though. I have an older brother who's 9 years older and single mom, so it's a little different. But instead of getting a babysitter, she would take me to the movies along with my brother to the drive-in. So I'd be like 4 or whatever, seeing these movies I probably shouldn't be seeing. But that's how I turned out fine, I think.
Yeah. Look at this.
Yeah, I try to get her on the show. We'll figure that out at some point. So, Rory, now you're primarily known for doing a lot of documentaries. What's the difference between directing a documentary and a narrative?
Well, a narrative, you're dealing with actors. That's the biggest difference, and that was my favorite part of the filmmaking process. I know some directors are maybe more concerned with compositing of the shots and whatnot, and I love doing that too. We had a great DP, Al Francesco, but what I enjoyed the most was dealing with the actors, because they make the scenes and the words come to life. And I'm not really in my documentary work, I'm not like a micromanager. I like to hire really good people and then let them work and contribute where I can too. So with the actors, like there's scenes with Jim, and he just brings so much like gravitas that I didn't even imagine when it was happening. And that was really cool to witness. It was like a whole other artistic component. And sometimes when you're working on something, and in the documentary world, this happens, where an editor will be like, hey, let me try something. And it's not what you have in your mind. It's not what you necessarily want. But then what that person does is even better. And it's totally different. And that's what happened with some of the acting in the film. Not just from Jim's character, but from Sean Carrigan as Luther, and from Harlan Drum, who plays Sophie, the romantic interest. They just elevated all the work, and it was incredible. I think the two things I'll say about the film that I'm the most proud of are the acting and the cinematography. I think those are two things that do not feel low budget or indie at all. So, and Jim definitely brought the heat.
Thanks, dude.
Yeah. The movie wasn't Wicker Man, because there's not Father Christmas in Wicker Man, but there's
no Father Christmas. The masks are like the style of the Wicker Man masks, except for it's 4 animals. There's like a bear, a duck, a frog, and then there's a guy named Father Christmas, but he doesn't have a Santa hat. He has like just another animal hat on. It's just his name. And they're like, they run from a big house to a little cabin, and the dudes just start to like axe the cabin up, trying to break it.
Yeah, it does definitely sound familiar. Hope maybe someone in the chat will know. But
well, I remember my first horror film experience, like true like watching a movie, is I really wanted to see A Nightmare on Elm Street, and I was around 10. And like one of the sequels had come out, and this is when like Freddy was like a comedic character.
Yeah.
I remember he was like hosting a video countdown on like MTV,
Yeah.
and the Fat Boys were on. So I thought he was like a funny guy. He's like wearing sunglasses.
Yeah.
So I convinced my mom to rent the original Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah, much darker.
Yeah, and they went out, and I had a babysitter. And I just watched it like by myself, and like I could not sleep for weeks at a time. Would have nightmares about Freddy Krueger. Very different film than the ones later on in the series.
Yeah, it becomes much, like you said, much more comedic. And
yeah, I should have rented like number 5, not the original. Well, the original is obviously
Freddy's Dead. Maybe was a very comedic one.
Dude, my wife and I we've kind of extended it to middle September now, but for maybe the last 6 years or so, we watch a horror movie a day for the month of October.
Oh, nice.
Backed it up to like mid-September. And the 2 big finds, usually the good finds, you got to go way back. But I had never seen the original Last House on the Left.
Oh, wow.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Some of the most disturbing, gruesome, incredible movie making, real terror, right? And then the Bob Clark movie, Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things.
Yeah, you are a horror fan. You're not just
saying, bro, I throw down. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, I got Mark Scheffler from Last House on the Left in my movie, in my first feature film.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the movie too. So, and I think that movie is better. I think it's a better movie than people give it credit for.
A good movie. There's no
it's a well-known movie, but I think people don't really think of it as a good movie, and I think it is.
Well, everybody I talked to about it referred to the 2009 version. I said, I have no idea what that one's like. I'm talking about
it's all right.
the Wes Craven original.
Yeah. It's really weird because when you watch it today, there's a lot of comedy in that movie, and I don't think people think of it as a comedy.
Which is kind of what the other thing there is in that is when they kill, they do it kind of casually and awkwardly. Like it's not I slice and his head comes off. They kind of like stab and the deaths are slow and drawn out and gruesome.
Makes it much more disturbing.
Yeah, it's gnarly, man. It's
where the deaths are prolonged and they're not just easy. It makes the violence mean more, I think.
And the killers kill like maybe they've done it a little bit before, but they don't. They're not proficient at it. Like most slashers are really good at just getting you with that first whack. Are you a horror guy?
I'm not a huge horror guy.
Pee the bed.
Yeah. I get really scared sometimes. That's why I've been calling.
Michelle has to hold you.
Yeah, I get in the fetal position. I mean,
you.
I don't like watching people get tortured.
Sure,
that's the thing. Like you're more sadistic. I think more of a little more of a sociopath than me. But I think and ironically, speaking of which, I believe David Howard Thornton is confirmed to come over here. That's Art the Clown.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, Art the Clown.
Yeah. So, and I asked if he would walk the red carpet in costume, which I'm sure he appreciated. So,
yeah, that's what they love to do. They love to dress up in there.
His appearance after that.
Well, he knows our producer, Alok, who I think you know too.
Yeah, I'm friends with Alok's a good guy.
Yeah, really good guy. But I like horror too. It's just I'm not fanatical. One of my favorite movies, I don't know if it would be considered horror, is The Sixth Sense, and
I consider
Street's up there too. So they're up there, and I just what's the movie I watched with my kids that The Black Phone, we both really love.
Oh, it's a good movie, yeah.
Yeah, well, The Black Phone to me, it's like horror. I like horror with like a little bit of heart mixed in, and that's a little coming of age too. I'm a big softie.
Yeah.
Just not frosty, all right.
What's your all-time favorite, Neil?
So I really do like the Universal monster movies. I really like Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein, Invisible Man, and then also Creepshow holds a special place because it's the first VHS tape my mom bought me when I was a little kid. So so that's up there. But Dawn of the Dead is a great. I think it's the best zombie movie.
Great movies hold up, like they're timeless, and you forgive so much. You're like, oh, this movie might feel dated, but good storytelling is universal throughout time. In fact, my son messaged me. He's in college, and he's just like, I just saw the craziest movie ever. And I was like, what was it? And it was the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Oh yeah.
And so you're talking about, what was
brilliant
that?
Movie.
1974. And, you forgive things with whether it's technology or not having certain things or something looks a little, even like with the Nightmare on Elm Street, that last scene is so bad looking when she gets
even at that time I always thought that was a little strange, but some of this stuff looks like when he comes through the wall, I think looks way better in the old one than in the new one with the CG.
Yeah,
you're just more forgiving when it's good storytelling, I find. It's why the original Home Alone holds up. Whereas today it would be over in like 3 minutes. He would just have a cell phone and call. But good movie.
I would put Texas Chainsaw on my top list too. That's a great. And there's something. It's very gritty, and it kind of feels like you're not supposed to be watching it when you're seeing the movie.
Dude, I saw the opening credits. So I like missed that movie as a teenager, and then I was living in Austin, Texas, and saw a double feature in 1999, Halloween 1999. Of two movies I'd never seen, which was the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and The Exorcist back to back in this little 30-seat movie house. And I was stoned out of my brain, like bleeding-eyed, horribly stoned. And when the opening images of both those movies, but Texas Chainsaw Massacre starts with like those flash bulbs.
Yeah, and the sound is like now. Yeah.
Dude. And just the boneyard of it all, and the fact that in the narrator describing the macabre account that he's about to tell and everything. And we had all heard stories growing up in Texas about, Texas is pretty replete with a history of very gruesome serial killers. And so we had heard that it was this amalgamation of real shit that had happened, right, where we were all sitting there watching it.
Yeah.
And it was so gnarly. And then in The Exorcist, when it starts off and he was in Iraq, you know, and
yeah, they wanted to cut that whole scene out when
Dude,
I watched the recent
documentary. Remember, you know, the dogs in that, and it was,
yeah.
like I said, I was in another dimension already, and the audio took off, and it felt like the presence of something horrible was in the room with us.
Yeah, that would be another movie. That's the best film adaptation. I would say it's the best combination of movie and book. Both are like perfect, I think. And that doesn't happen very often.
I think it's the highest quality cinema there is for a horror movie. Is The Exorcist.
Yeah, 100%.
Real quick, you said the Universal movies.
Yeah.
Do you remember in the 80s? They were probably from the 60s or 70s, but these real thin, like single volume orange hardcover bound books about each of them. So you
not really.
In my elementary school's library, you could check out The Wolfman. You could check out The Creature from the Black Lagoon, and like Dracula and all these. And so I got turned on by all that back in the day.
Yeah. So one of the things really stands out just doing the show is having Ben Chapman on the show, who played Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Sick.
And he was not doing well at the time, and but he came on and did the show, and it's a definitely highlight for me. It was really wild to have a connection to the Universal Monster show. Yeah.
That's awesome.
And real quick, Texas Chainsaw, that's a movie. So I saw it in a really bad print at 35 millimeter at a theater in Boston, which really added to the movie. And then at the same theater, I saw the restoration, a digital restoration, and it actually was a lot worse, I thought, because they cleaned it up too much.
You can see what's dishonest about it, right?
Yeah, you could see stuff that, there's some of the stuff they make too bright. Like some of the shadows are there purposely to hide things. And,
Interesting.
Such a good movie, man.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Toby Hooper died last year. Is that right?
Yeah, a lot of them. So last year was the 50th anniversary of the movie.
Yeah.
Gunnar Hansen passed away a few years ago, and Meredith Burns, and so and a lot of the cast were not fans of Toby Hooper. I guess he's not necessarily nice to them, but
exploitative, they would describe him.
Yeah, I don't think he really paid much of anybody. Yeah. He made a lot of money off of it. I don't think anyone else did. So.
Yeah. We finally broke down and watched Chainsaw 2 this year and was like, what is this?
So when I was a kid, I always hated Chainsaw 2 because it's...
You dig it now?
I dig it because I've seen it a few times since then. And if you go in with the mindset, it's an overt comedy.
Yeah.
I think you can enjoy it.
Dude, the cinematography is through the roof. Excellent. It's incredible.
And
it looks good. The editing's so good. It's the story that I'm just like, where on earth?
It's so weird because the first one's such a gritty horror movie. Then the second one's this like over the top comedy version of the first movie. It's very bizarre.
Yeah.
I really love horror.
Yeah, I do.
I'm sorry, Rory, but yeah.
He was on an iconic series.
I know. Actually, how did that change just like your life? True Blood blows up.
Big time. It was, like I said, my plan was to just keep doing little plays in little theaters all over LA and jumping in on my buddies' no budget movies and stuff like that. And I thought, maybe when I'm in my 40s or 50s and it's not so much about being kind of a young hot boy kind of thing, like in the early 2000s when I first moved to LA, it was, Orlando Bloom and Ryan Gosling and a lot of people. Like it just felt to me like, well, you'd better be this kind of beautiful young thing or else you're not going to get to work. And so I thought, no problem. I'll just live a life of poverty and act a lot. And when I'm 50, I'll be really good at it. And then they'll need a man and I'll be ready to go. And the thing that kind of changed the course of that for me was True Blood. And Alan Ball, the creator, I had a 2-line audition for what was going to be a guest spot in the pilot, and went in and did the 2 lines. I don't think that's why I got the part, but we talked. He's from a little town in Georgia, and I'm from a little town outside of Dallas, and we just talked about small town life. And the character description for that character literally on the printed page said the most nondescript human being you've ever seen in your life. And I thought, wow, thank you.
A
And
role I was made to play. Yeah.
well, what it was is a blank slate where I got to make a lot of it up.
Yeah,
And,
okay.
you know, without any credits, I would come to someone like Academy Award winner Alan Ball and say, what if I did this like I was really shy and innocent? I thought that would be a good choice, is to, if the world we were going to be in maybe for 7 years was people fucking vampires and blood and murder and violence and sex, that maybe a really innocent, pure perspective would be interesting. And I was looking for something interesting to act. You know, in TV things, you know, in movies you get to change over the course of the story, but in television it's usually pretty static. And I thought if I start there, then because of this environment, surely this character's gonna have to change over time, and I'll get to act different things if this thing goes on for a while. And so I pitched it to Alan Ball, and he said, "Show me." And so I did a take where I was just really shy talking to Anna Paquin, and he just started to laugh. And he said, "Yeah." And I was a nobody actor with no credits that had been hired for 2 lines, and he insisted that I be a series regular, and he was receptive when I had ideas, and so was his staff. And like, you know, that's pretty rare in our business, especially when people have the accolades that he had, and the intelligence and the acuity and all the rest of it. And he was listening to the instinct of a guy that essentially got cast off of a conversation about small towns. And I'll always love him and thank him for that, man. It was a lot of fun. Let me clarify that. I got comfortable enough on camera on that show that I stopped kind of shitting my pants every time it was time to act. Like, for a while I was really frustrated because I was very comfortable in the theater, very comfortable in class and stuff like that. But the camera looked like a horrible pterodactyl that was going to eat my face off, and I would tense up and freak out. And that show gave me the opportunity to get involved enough in good stories that I could kind of forget about the camera and relax a little bit. And you know, that changed my career, changed my life.
Yeah, that's an important character in the show, because that kind of it's kind of like the audience's point of view. It's like, you know,
That's
the innocent guy.
Yeah. It's like if you came into town, you're witnessing all this stuff, and it was a character I decided to make sensitive enough that what I was witnessing would actually affect me. It was fun, man. We had a good time. It was a really fun cast, really awesome group of people. Fun.
And then as the show goes on, like you said, your character changes, and and the audience can change along with them. So I think it was a really, the show, probably still be a success, but I think that's a really important character. It would have been different without that character.
Oh, cool. Yeah, it was fun. A lot of fun.
Yeah. And it was kind of the start of, horror has always been around, but horror becoming mainstream was like that. And then The Walking Dead really, then everyone was a horror fan eventually.
Yeah. Well, and it's cool too, because what works about those really good shows is the same sort of principles that we had on this little micro budget movie, which is let's be faithful to our creativity. You know what I mean? Like even with a big machine like HBO behind it, HBO and those guys at AMC, they trusted their creatives. They kind of kept their hands off. And so in a way, it was way more structured, and there were a lot more moving parts, but it was, what works about a movie like I was saying earlier, what works about a movie like Grace Point is you're free. You're free. If one of those takes in the little cave with Johnny, we wanted to just improvise for 45 minutes straight and kind of stay in the direction of the script, but make it up and see where things go and see where it takes you emotionally and see how you start to behave. Rory just sat back there telling his camera people to keep rolling because it might be useful to the movie, right? And that kind of thing would never, ever, ever happen in a big comic book movie or a network television show or a lot of other places. And so as different as, a big hit HBO series may seem from a little movie like this, the guiding creative principles were the same. which is let's find out, like a spirit of real curiosity.
Yeah, I think the HBO series in general like really changed TV because
They did.
Before Breaking Bad, everything it was Oz and The Wire and Sopranos, and then quote unquote big actors like used to be when I was a kid like a big actor wouldn't be on a TV show, and now it's common because there's better scripts in some cases like I think 24 too is like a show like that, like he's a big time actor and now he's on a TV show because the script was so good.
Yeah.
So Rory, was Grace Point your first narrative feature?
Yeah, that's my first scripted feature. I've been flirting with scripted for a while. I've been putting recreations in my docu work, and I did a show for AMC called The Secret History of Comic Books, which was EP by Robert Kirkman, and we did all recreations for this one episode. It was called The Trials of Superman. It was about the two guys that created Superman, Siegel and Schuster, and how they sold the rights away for like $130 in 1939, and they spent their whole life trying to get the rights back and just get credit. They were taken off for credit. So people that knew them were all gone, and there was no footage. So we did all recreations, and we used the entire crew from the Flash CW series. They were the crew, and the week before, they had done another episode in the series that also another director did that had recreations. And that, I guess, didn't go well. I wasn't there for that. But our week went really well. And the crew all came up to me, from the art director to, it didn't matter who it was, the actors, the audio. And they just said how pleasant of an experience it was. So my cinematographer and I, we loved doing it. I was like, wow, I could do this. And I could do this. I want to do next time on a bigger scale, like full movie. And that kind of gave me the confidence to kind of proceed forward. And after that, I was just all systems go, trying to figure out a way to make it happen.
Can I say something? I think he did a really two things and only two things.
Please,
by the way,
more than I'm used to.
Is one, I'm a big believer, and there's no way to put this to the test or measure it, but I'm a big believer that joy is a critical component to this 100-year, relatively new art form, which is cinema, right? Making movies. And that if you experience the joy of making it, something about that makes its way through into the movie and to the audience, no matter how painful or dark the subject matter or the movie itself might be. And Rory was a leader who insisted on his infectious joy being a part of the way we went about our business. And that's, you can't fake the funk on that one. Like it's either real or it's not. And the other thing, and it makes a little sense here, and you say earlier that when you would make a documentary, you would use your talent and instinct to pick people and then trust them to do their job. A lot of first-time directors want to, because they're finally directing a feature now, they want to manage everything and control everything and control the outcome and almost try to force things to be like they are in their head. But that spirit of, look, I've brought you guys into my project that means so much to me, and now I'm going to trust you, is its own kind of guidance, right? It's its own kind of direction, which is to say, everybody, Al on the camera and the makeup gals and Johnny and the rest of us get to be intuitive about things and listen to our instincts about things, like they do in the sports world that you've been used to covering. Mm-hmm. Like those guys work off of instinct. All those fighters, for years, I taught acting for a long time too, and would talk about, watch the athletes, particularly the fighters, because they prepare, and then they step into that arena and allow for whatever's going to be, and they respond to what's really going on right then and there, right? If Aljamain Sterling is in a fight and he decides last Thursday that 2.5 minutes into the second round, he's going to do XYZ, it's probably going to cost him his ass. And so he doesn't do that. He prepares and then he responds. And to me, that's what acting is. And you know, I know Rory had a clear picture in his head of what he wanted it to be like, but when he would see what everybody was bringing to the table, he would kind of sit back and encourage it. And not most new directors would have the good sense to do that, to trust the people. They would kind of try to force their way. So that's all. That's the only good thing I have to say about the guy.
Well, one thing I'll say, and you know, making a movie is supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not working in insurance. And I've been on set. I've done a lot of different kinds of production, reality shows and things. It's amazing sometimes how much tension can be brought to this and how miserable some people seem.
Yep.
It's like, if I wanted a real job, I'd be an accountant. You're at the end of the day, you're playing pretend. You're telling stories, and it's the stuff you did with action figures as a kid. It's instinctual, and it should be joyous. And look, movies do have the power to change people's lives 100%. I think they're important, but we're also not curing cancer. Yeah. And let's have fun. We're telling stories. It should be collaborative. And look, you're going to have creative disagreements sometimes and butt heads, but if we're all on this journey together, it's to bring it back to sports. It's like playing sports should be fun. In fact, in fighting, before somebody gets in the cage, sometimes the coach say, "Have fun out there." It's like, what? Like, I'm going, I might get knocked unconscious, because when you're, in my opinion, when you're having fun, when you're free flowing, you're more open to things. You're not going to be closed-minded. You're willing to try things. You're trusting your partners in this, and filmmaking is a partnership. Yeah. It's you know, it can be, as a director, it's a benevolent kind of dictatorship, but at the end of the day, it takes everybody. It takes a village to make a movie. And if your lighting's not good and it's all screwed up because somebody is pissed off or whatever's going on, it's going to affect the whole scene, you know? And so it's something I try to remember in all my work, even serious topics. Like, I just did a documentary where it was about a coach who died in a bicycling accident. And again, dealing with his family, I try to be genuine, but I also try to be joyful in telling the story, and just try to elicit that real emotion. I think it's important. But that would be my advice too. And you see it on like short films too. Just again, implodes because everybody's just so tense and it's so ultra serious. And I think it's important to take your work seriously, but not yourself so much. It's also important to make sure you feed people well. That would be my other piece of advice. Feed people well. Like on day 2, Sean Carrigan knocked on my hotel room door and he's like, "Dude, we got to talk." And I'm like, "Oh boy, what's going on here?" And I thought he's going to tell me like something with the scene is wrong or choices or wardrobe. And he's like, "We got to fix this fucking catering. Lunch is abysmal." And what had happened was the catering was focusing all on dinner, which is the last meal of the day. And people just want to leave and go back to their room. So I was like, "All right, I'll take care of it." And I went back to the people. I said, "Hey, put all your energy into lunch, okay? And dinner can be more something they can take with them." And then I remember the next day, Sean came up to me and he like put his arm around me. He's like, "Good work." So I was like, well, if nothing else, I can get the catering right. So,
dude, it's so important. That's like an elemental human thing. Is if you don't eat, or you're hungry, or eat shit that you hate, you're not
yeah. Well, it sounds kind of common sense, but honestly, the lunch, like you said, I've been on a few things, not as much with you guys, but the lunch. So you're breaking, you have the lunch, and then that's going to reinvigorate you for the rest of the shoot.
You need the lunch to bring it. That's the key. And one thing I learned too, and just kind of bringing it back to sports, as a director, you're kind of like the coach, and your job is to get the players to win the game or make a good movie. But players have different personalities. There might be like the old veteran who's seen and done it all. You got the scared rookie. You've got different things. And Jim you're an excellent actor, but if you're not feeling something, he's not doing it. You know, or at least on set he wasn't. And I have a confession to make. You're gonna hear. This is breaking news. So we did one of my favorite scenes in the whole film. In fact, my wife said this, that she didn't even notice this all the time she watched it, but she noticed it, is when you're sitting by the lake, by the water, and there's a tear coming out of your eye. It's a huge scene. And we elected to shoot it at like the magic hour, it's called, like when the sun is like perfect and everything. It's really like a beautiful scene, and we don't even know what your character. We have to infer what your character might be thinking about, and maybe on second viewing you can kind of imagine more. So it's really good. So Jim's he's got to get in this place before the scene starts to be able to elicit this emotion. And to your credit, you kind of told me, like, you know, just when you have to go to a place and just to kind of give you some time. And then we were shooting on prime lenses, so you said, I think I can only get this tear once. So
I don't think I called it a tear.
Oh, what did you say? Emotion?
Probably take.
Okay. I don't know verbatim, but you said whatever you're trying to do, you think you could get it out of you once.
Yeah.
So you're like, make sure you fucking get it. Well, what I didn't tell Jim is I wanted to do some multiple angles of this thing with the emotion. One has your close-up hero, and one was with Johnny in the background kind of looking at you.
Yeah.
And we did that one first. Okay. When in retrospect, maybe I should have flipped them, but we did that one first because with the prime lenses, you can only shoot one angle. So you're like, you did the scene, you had a tear come out. It was really good. Johnny was good. Everything was good. And you were like, do you think we got it? We got that one. We're good. Moving on. So I was like, shit, I really want this close up of you. Like you're a master hero. So I was like, I pulled you aside. I was like, I think I may have fucked something up there. I think I messed up, you know? And Jim, because he just had empathy for me as like a human being, was like, he just didn't want me to be embarrassed. So not even relegated to filmmaking, you're like, all right, I got you. Let's do one more. I can do it. And so we went. This time, double tear came out. You had boop, boop out of both eyes. We got the close up. But I think if I said, hey, I want to do this, you'd be like, I don't know. I don't know what you would have said. But it was relating more on a personal level, you know, of like, hey, I got your back. Don't worry. So I said, hey, I think I made a mistake. I went with the wide first, blah, blah, blah. So, but that was good for you. Sean Carrigan, this guy, you just say, like, I think your character bangs his head against the wall. Like, fuck it, let's do it. And he's just banging his head against the wall. Whatever he's game for, he'll try. So there's this one scene where Johnny's character spits in Sean's face. And that wasn't in the script. So I told Johnny, you know, spit in his face. And he's like, no way, man. I'm not going to do that. I'm like, no, Sean will like it. He'll be cool. So he spits in his face, and in the one take, he's like, "Why?" Like he's insinuating I'm gonna hit him, and then, you know, once you see the film, you understand maybe why he didn't. But I said to Sean, I was like, "Well, why don't you just hit him? I mean, maybe try like something different, like you like it." Like you're enjoying the spit. Sean's like, fuck yeah, man, let's do it. So he did it, and this time he wiped the spit off and licked it.
Yeah, I remember the scene. I was like, this kind of
that is the perfect collaboration. Like with all this stuff, it's like I have an idea, he takes that idea and then elevates it. Just keeps, and that's what you get with collaboration. And I feel like filmmaking is a collaborative medium. And so I was just really blessed to have such good actors for my first film, and I hope if I'm fortunate enough to get to do another one that I'll have same kind of quality.
It's cool to hear that perspective, because there are things that are kind of ticklish to act, that are elusive to act sometimes, and they're usually emotional. Like 95% of the time, my approach to human emotion while I'm acting is, well, we'll see. But it just felt like a good opportunity in that moment to actually have that kind of experience. And so it was nice to be able to say to Rory, you know, what I really mean is, let's try to get it in one. You know what I mean? Not a second take is off limits or anything like that, but let's all focus, myself included, enough that since this is kind of a ticklish realm or domain of what we're all trying to do here, we could be proud of the first one if we need to be, right? Like I'd have probably left that part out too. We would have done as many as we needed to, but it's cool to feel the whole crew really kind of dig in and say, let's all try to get this in one. Why not?
Well, and that's the thing that people ask, what's the difference on like an indie lower budget film? than like Fast and the Furious. You said for Fast and Furious, you had almost like 2 weeks to shoot the one scene, right? Or it went for 2 weeks. Maybe that was the driving.
Maybe that was something different.
But how long did the one when you're having the interaction with the I guess it was young Vin Diesel's character, like, and you're going back and forth. How long, like, how many takes time would you have?
Probably a lot of takes, but it ended up being maybe a third of the day or something. Maybe it was talking about another movie where we did a battle sequence. It took 2 weeks.
Okay. Like, well, it's like,
yeah,
that's the thing. You don't have the time.
No.
Like, we can't go over. For instance, if we didn't capture that when the light was right, we're not scheduled to film tomorrow there. So you really have to be prepared. And that was one thing I tried to be on this film was the preparation. We did 3 full scouts of the locations. And I was there 2 weeks before we filmed. And me and the DP, sometimes you'll do rehearsals with the actors. Me and the DP rehearsed. Just so we were completely on the same page. And we went through our shot list and we prioritized. We're going to start with these. If we have time, we'll get to these. And then these are our special wish list. And we were just very organized. So like, when Jim would come, what are we doing? I would say, here's what we're doing. And I just knew when they showed up so that would allow us then to improvise a little bit. Like, for instance, with the tunnel scene, we had the whole night blocked off, but we did that on purpose. It was an emotional scene. And in preparation, Jim said, hey, we're going to want time with this. And because it was at night, I think that maybe we shot some of the Johnny on his bike and running around.
The horse.
Yeah, some of that stuff. But this was like the main thing. So we had multiple hours to get it right. And we lit it in a way so that they could just do their thing and Al could move around. We didn't have to keep relighting. They could stay in the moment. But we prepped it that way. And we prepped it that way for the emotion that what we were shooting was basically going to enhance the storytelling. It wasn't like the storytelling has to fit in to how we're shooting it. It was we're going to shoot it so that we can fit into the best way to tell the story. So I would just say with young filmmakers, prep. And then when you do that, you'll have time to try stuff. And you'll also feel comfortable. Like, oh, I know this location. I've been here before. All of that.
I would say the same thing for actors is it's a bummer, man. Like you've got to be able to do it, but it's a bummer when you get cast for something that shoots tomorrow. Like it's because it's a question of potential left in the bag. You're like, damn, if I would have had 4 days, 3 days, and I know how to tune the world out for 3 days and get where I need to get to. With you know what I mean? But when you have time, like we did on this, prepare, and then
you did a weekend retreat.
Yeah,
he went away for the weekend. He's like, I'm like, oh, what are you doing this weekend, Charlotte? He's like, oh, I'm doing. Yeah, he went like off. What
I did like a tactical training seminar.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it was cool
on his own. Like just mentioned it like very casually, but that's what he wanted to do, I guess, to get in the right headspace and do the prep and everything. So it was that's another thing is I don't
love talking about the shit that goes into it.
How come?
Well, I've seen some interviews with actors, like the right handful of actors. I could listen to their interviews about anything. And
you feel it comes off kind of pretentious, or
yes, when a guy sits down and says, "Let me tell you all the shit I did to do this," it's like, man, just let the audience take it in and see if it's worth anything to them or not. Instead of, there's definitely in the last 20 years a movement of describing all the extreme things you did. And I'd rather at this, and look, as a young guy, I wanted that too. I thought that's what you did when you acted, is tell everybody all the crazy shit you did to get ready for it. And at this point of my life, I'd rather just keep that process private and let the work speak for itself. And if people respond, great. And if they're curious, how'd you do it? Just say, yeah, I don't know, just gave it my best, and let it stay a little, let it stay fictional. You know what I mean? And that's kind of where I'm at now.
Are you like, Jim's worked with all kinds of people, including Robert Duvall.
Yeah,
Are you amazed
hero.
sometimes at like how actors have different process? Like you thinking one guy does this, and then it turns out they do something totally different. Does it really matter? It's just how you get. Like it's just as long as you get there, it doesn't matter how you get there.
There's a lot of ways to come at acting, right? And the kind of acting that interests me is truthful acting, where people behave instead of talk. They really experience things instead of demonstrate what they think they ought to be experiencing. So you guys all know the people who do that, and we all know the people who do something else, right? And in theory, my hero and friend Robert Duvall and I are trained in the same approach to acting, but I've worked with him, and at this point, that approach for him is just his DNA. He doesn't have to think about technique. He doesn't have to think about approach. He does prepare. I did a movie with him when he was, at the time, I think he was about 75 or 76 years old. And we were down in Brownsville, Texas on the border at this shitty little Best Western. And he'd be in the pool waist deep every morning at sunrise, just talking to himself. I don't know what about. I didn't want to bother him. But he was getting himself ready for something. Right. And then he'd show up on set. And every take, and why not? He would do something different, and they were all valuable, and they were all truthful, and they were all spontaneous and personal. And what was a technique once upon a time for him is now really what a technique means. Is just a way, right? It's just his way, and it's not the technique of his teacher anymore. It's his way. Kind of like, you know, a cool, over dramatic way to look at it is like the samurai. Like they're shown how to do some things, and then at some point the sword just kind of becomes a part of who they are. And it's like the guy that innovated the approach to acting I use said it takes 20 years to be an actor. What he meant is to master your own acting. And I got to do a play last year at the school I studied at and taught at, and it was my 20th year. And I thought, oh shit, this is a nice way to test. It was a really tough, challenging play, and it was 3 hours straight of me needing to be locked in and concentrated. And I got to see the difference between, in that same little room where I learned to act 20 years before, I got to see what 20 years of devoting myself to that technique would give me. And a lot of it is that the technique is just kind of gone away, and what's left is my instinct is in line with that technique now. And
is that hard to go back and forth though, between like theater acting and movie acting? Because I just suppose there's a difference. Like theater acting, you also want to emote to the people in the back of the room, and in a film it's more just to the camera.
I'll give you a not very sophisticated answer, which is my thought is in the theater, speak up.
All right, fair enough. I like that actually. Yeah,
nice and simple.
I don't do it any different.
All right, yeah.
Broadway, and I didn't think about anything except I owe that gal in the back ticket. She needs to hear me too, so I should speak up. And that's it. For me, now
I like that because
actors can give you 1,000 answers to that.
Yeah. Well, kind of like we were saying, a different thing, but I like that though. If it's emotional, it should resonate in them wherever it is. If it's on camera or in person.
Well, and real emotion reveals itself. You know, if any of us were like in a Broadway house, 150 feet away from somebody, at let's say a train station, and they had a real human emotion, they wouldn't need to reach us with it. We'd be able to spot it. We'd be able to see that lady's going through some shit. We would know. And in fact, I think emotion kind of gets shy and disappears when you try to demonstrate it.
I actually I agree with that.
Yeah.
And it was so Gray's Point's out today. People should check it out. I really loved it, not just because, like I said, you guys are here. Awesome. It's a really movie I really liked a lot. There's a lot of stuff going on in there, and honestly, I think the acting is a huge strength in the movie, and the characters is what draws you in. You did mention Rory, the location scouting, and I had taken notes. I thought the locations look great because they look real, they look lived in. They're not like oh, they just made just to look old or something. So you said that took a couple weeks, and Jim, how much does that add for you as an actor, or does it not make a difference if like you're in an actual place?
It's the best. It's going back to that thing of like you've already got the fact that it's an imaginary situation working against the reality of things. And when you take a hokey, fakey kind of set, that makes it harder. When you have a hokey, fakey actor across from you, that makes it harder. And in the same way, you get someone solid across from you and honest across from you, and you have a real working room where you could pick something up, and you open a drawer and the forks are where they should be and stuff. It just makes it easier to go, yeah, this is real. This is real. And I directed a 30-minute movie in 2023, and one of the things that was really important to me was, I can't ask I guess I could. I didn't want to ask the actors to be more realistic than the environments they were acting in. Why should all the pressure go to them, right? So I tried to take a page out of the same book that we all do, and that Rory came up with, which was, let's find some real spots to shoot in and interact with the environment in a real way.
We actually I wrote the script based on the environment we could get. I think this is some advice I would give to young filmmakers. Embrace your limitations. I knew we had this town in North Carolina called Laurinburg. I found out everything that we could get in the town, and then I adjusted the script to that. Versus like, we need a tank because I wrote it in the script. Well, we can't get a tank, but we have all these airplanes that we could use in the film. So that's what I did. And I think that's important, especially on a lower budget. And I see it a lot with documentary filmmaking too. People will reach out to me and like, I really want to make a film on LeBron. I'm like, well, do you know LeBron? No. Okay. Well, that's not going to happen. But what does your grandmother? What did she do? Do something that's in your circle. Embrace who's in your circle. I think is really important. And one other thing I wanted to mention is just hearing you talk about acting. Originally, a close friend of mine who passed away, Luke Perry, was attached to the film, and I wasn't sure. At the time, it was a totally different script with different characters, but he just told me he would be in it for me in whatever way I wanted. And the film is dedicated to Luke. It's the last thing that appears on screen. And he and I met up for dinner when he was filming the Quentin Tarantino movie. And Luke had been around. I mean, he had seen it all. Like, he'd been on a hit TV series where he was like a teen idol, which, by the way, if you go back and watch Beverly Hills 90210,
he's great on the show.
Incredible. And he had been in Oz. He had done TV movies. His career went like this. And then
8 Seconds.
He had done a lot of great work, 8 Seconds. And he had gotten a little jaded sometimes with the industry. In fact, I would see his work more than he did. I'd say, I saw you on this show. Like, how was it? And then he the first time I saw him get really excited in the longest time was on that Tarantino movie. Yeah. And we met up for dinner on the day he was filming. I was just so impressed that he would meet up with me at this time. And I was going through like a divorce, and he was just such a good friend. He wanted to meet with me, but he was like a kid. And I asked him about working with Quentin Tarantino. Like, what's it like? What's his best quality? And I'm thinking he's going to say, oh, the writing. And he said, Rory, he's the kindest director I've ever worked with. Wow. And I was like, wow. What do you mean? He's like, he's just so appreciative. He calls me on my way home and tells me what a great job. He's so enthusiastic. Yeah. And he would say things like, we're going to do one more take. Why? And everyone's saying use him because we love making movies. And he told me about how there was no Hollywood bullshit. There's no hierarchy on set. He's used the same crew since like Pulp Fiction, and they're sitting with the A-list actors at lunch. Everyone's together. There were no publicists or managers allowed on set. There's no cell phones allowed on set, which Luke loved. And I'm hearing about this, and it was not what I expected to hear. And he was like, yeah, it's incredible. And then he said, and I'm trying not to get choked up, but he said, you remind me of Quentin. And I was like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, no. And he's like, just the way your approach is with people. And he said, like, I can't wait to be in your first movie. It's going to be something really special. Of course, he passed away before he could be in my movie, but he always just believed in me. And I think in life, it's important to surround yourself, and there's only going to maybe be a few, but whoever they are, surround yourself with some people that believe in you, whatever you're trying to do, making movies, or if you want to be a school teacher, but they just believe in you, not necessarily the project, not necessarily the endeavor, but they believe in you. And he was that for me. And I don't think I would have the confidence to deal with actors if I hadn't talked to him. Mm-hmm. And I would hear about what he didn't like in directors mm-hmm. or executives and what he did like. And I just would try to log that in my brain. So yeah, the film's dedicated to Luke, and I don't feel like it would have happened without him. I'm very grateful for him. And he also introduced me to my wife. So
that's very cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, that was just my spiel. I wanted to make sure I got that out.
Yeah. And his son Jack Perry's in AEW doing well. And
well, I believe he's coming to the premiere. He told me he'll be there.
Cool.
Yeah, Jack, his son, will be there, which will be really special. So yeah.
I'm a wrestling fan. I brought my Ric Flair figure here since you did the 30 on 30 on the Nature Boy. But, yeah.
So you've seen the 30 for 30?
We got the Ariel Helwani of horror movies here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have some action figures back here. Well, these aren't action figures; they don't move. But
yeah, that was a cool project to work on too, the Ric Flair, and I'm grateful for that one. And I think I try to take the same approaches to projects, and just that. Hope somebody was just telling me they didn't like wrestling, but they liked that film. They just said that today on another show.
I think that's a good show of a good documentary. You don't really have to be interested in the subject to like it. Like, I'm not. I guess I played Donkey Kong. I'm not a huge Donkey Kong fan, but I love the Donkey Kong. What's it?
King of Kong.
Yeah, King of Kong. Right. Yeah.
No, it's a great movie, and I think it's important in projects to just find things that everyone can relate to.
You're right.
All of us have insecurities or things that we can relate to one another. And I think if you're on social media, you would think, we're never been more divided. But in reality, people are people. And we were just talking about this earlier. You don't just usually sit around talking politics with people. You talk about things you have in common with people, like movies.
I'd never bring it up, but yeah.
Yeah. And I think with Ric Flair, I tried, the perfection of craft. Whether it's wrestling or horticulture, it's like that movie Euro Dreams of Sushi. You might not be into making sushi, but athletes love that movie because it's about achieving greatness. So it's like finding things that people can relate to. So I think in this film, Grace Point, it's a hero's journey. So maybe you're not struggling with sobriety, or maybe you don't have trauma from your childhood, but maybe you just have to overcome an obstacle and you can relate that way, or you have some anger over something that happened in the past. So I'm trying to find those little things that hopefully people can relate to in the middle of this journey that the character's on, which hopefully is a thrill ride.
Yeah, 100%. And where can people go to see where you can find Grace Point?
It's available today to rent on Amazon and Apple and wherever video is on demand. So please give it a rent. I think it's like $6. I mean, think about what you spend $6 on. Give it a try.
Yeah,
it's short too. I wanted to make a short movie, just because I like shorter films. And if you like it, leave a review, please. If you don't like it, keep it to yourself. No one asked. So,
I agree with that, actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially independent movies. Like, if you don't like it, just whatever. You spend an hour and a half.
Yeah, exactly.
If you don't like it, I'll be back next year talking about what happened to Rory.
I'll be like lying in the gutter somewhere. Yeah. I mean, no pressure. I'm just trying to send my kids through college, and I have high therapy bills. So
yeah. I don't want to get ahead of you, but will there be a physical release at some point?
That would be great. I mean, I'm taking it one step at a time. The first step was getting it in some theaters. Now it's just really pushing this VOD rental, and if that goes well, then we could do some other things.
Which cities is it going to be in theaters?
Well, it was already in theaters, mainly in North Carolina.
Yeah,
I played in Charlotte, and so the thing to focus on right now is just getting it on Amazon and iTunes. Every little bit helps, and I think we were talking about this with a smaller indie film. You think about even in the horror space, like that Skinamarink film. I don't know if that Or Terrifier. The first Terrifier is a great example.
Yeah,
Word of mouth. It just didn't explode the day it came out. People are like, you got to see this movie. You got to see it. And it
really the second one, like
another.
It was gonna be at theaters for like a day or two, and then it just kept doing well and played.
Nasty Neil, spread the word. Tell your little nasties about it.
I had all the guys from Terrifier right before it blew up. Damien. I was like, this movie's rules, and I got all the people on, and then it blew up because of me. But it does help, honestly, like people talking about a movie, and it gets the word out there.
Yeah, definitely spread the word, and I think there's something in this movie for everybody. Hopefully.
Yeah, no, I loved it. And real quick, Jim, you said you directed a short. Is that something you would like to continue to do?
Yeah, I think so. I think I've been preparing myself to do that, taking my time for a long time. I made some kind of experimental movies back when I was in my late 20s. They were all just sort of actor-centric. They were pretty formless, and I learned a lot. And, I'm 43, about to be 44 now, and the structure of story interests me more. I've always had a good relationship with, I think, the way images tell a story. So I felt confident there, and just surrounded myself with good people and made this movie, and learned a lot. But I like the movie. The movie's pretty close to what I tried to make.
I'm not going to spoil anything.
Yeah.
Are you allowed to give out the big news of something you just got cast in?
No.
You can't say it?
No.
All right. Well, I'm not.
And it's also a nice little part.
Still, I'd rather be in a nice.
I know.
But anyway, he got cast in something really huge. Remember, he was saying something about Marvel movies. So say hello to the new Captain America. No, he's not the new Captain America.
Captain Texas.
He would trade in all that integrity for a Captain America role in a heartbeat.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah, he wants to have kids.
Of course.
Yeah. But what do you want me to say? Let's do it.
But yeah. I've got on the plane out here today, I was outlining one of the ideas I had, and in the little bag of things that I'm going, what's next? One of them falls into the horror genre. So,
very cool. Well, hopefully we can have you back sometime. Yeah,
I'd love to be back, man.
Yeah,
this would go back to my my Howling roots. So
yeah. And that year Howling came out, same year American Werewolf in London came out, and The Wolfing. So it was a pretty wild year for.
And that was is it Baker, the makeup artist, Rick Baker?
Yeah.
Right. And did he do the makeup for both of them?
No, just the one. But both movies have great makeup, and they're like very different vibes. But American Werewolf in London is probably the best, in my opinion. A transformation scene. But they're both
the first transformation scene on in real time on camera was The Howling, right?
Yeah. And then it's all in light.
Yeah.
It's not all covered up. It still holds up. It's still wild, in my opinion.
Dee Wallace is fantastic.
Yeah, Dee's been on many times. I'm a big fan of Dee Wallace.
Yeah, she's great.
Yeah, and it's very cool. She's in tons of stuff still.
I know. I met her once at a convention, and without knowing me very well, she had baked some banana bread and brought it over to my table and was like, "Here you go."
I love it. Yeah, I hope it was good. Yeah,
I was like, "You don't know it, but you changed my life."
I love that story. That's very cool. Yeah,
it's cool.
And where can people, if you want them to, where they can they follow either of you online?
Well, the best place is Grace Point Film on IG, and that's our website, Grace Point Film. Both Jim and I are not individually on social media, so just follow the film.
There's many days I wish I wasn't, but I kind of have to.
No, it's all good.
Man, with what you're doing, you got to be.
Yeah. Each his own, but Grace Point Film, that's our Instagram, and we'll have a lot of stuff we're having a premiere on Thursday. I'm not sure if this is airing. This airs live, right?
Yeah, we're doing live right now.
Yeah, so Thursday, and we'll have video, and hopefully it's a great time for everybody. So that'll be on the IG, and just check out.
I'll link that up on the website too.
Yeah, awesome. Definitely. Thank you.
Are you on YouTube? Do these go on YouTube?
Yeah, this is live on YouTube, and then it'll be on all the different platforms after that, Spotify, and it'll be on video on here on YouTube and Spotify, and then audio on all the other platforms.
Great. This has been fun, man.
Yeah, I had a great time. It was great meeting both of you guys.
Nice to meet you, Neil.
Thank you for having us on, man.
Yeah, anytime. And thanks to Loke for setting it up. Loke's a good guy.
One of the best.
Yeah. I was just say something bad about him, but no, he's a good guy. All right. Thanks, everybody.
All right, brother. We'll see you.
Bye.